When she leaves you on red for 24 hours, she isn't busy. She is holding a psychological scalpel, dissecting your masculinity to see if you bleed desperation. But there is a hidden cognitive blind spot in female psychology, a mechanism so hardwired into human nature that if you trigger it correctly, she will be the one losing sleep over you. I am going to reveal exactly what this is at the very end of this breakdown. And once you understand this specific psychological trigger, no one will ever hold emotional leverage over you again. But here is the brutal reality most guys completely misunderstand. The moment you notice her pulling away, your nervous system hijacks your logic. You feel an actual physical tightening in your gut. Your brain interprets her silence not as a pause in conversation, but as a literal survival threat. So what do? You scramble. You send that polite follow-up text. You ask if everything is okay, masking your panic as basic courtesy. And this is exactly where the trap snaps shut. To her, that tiny little text is a massive billboard flashing your deepest insecurities. She does not see a caring man. She sees a man who is emotionally bleeding out because she simply decided to look the other way for an afternoon. This silence is a calibrated stress test. She is stripping away your external validation to see what remains underneath. If you instantly try to fill the void, you prove to her that your entire sense of self-worth is artificially propped up by her attention. Yet this is merely a symptom of a much deadlier disease. You are operating under the false assumption that your effort is highly valuable. In the harsh economy of human attraction, your value is exclusively determined by scarcity and self-containment. When you throw more words into the abyss of her silence, you are hyperinflating your own currency. You are printing money that she never asked for, rendering your time completely worthless in her eyes. But what happens next is the real secret no one talks about. The absolute destruction of her respect for you doesn't happen when you double text. It happens because you destroyed the one thing that keeps attraction alive, which is mystery. Human beings are fundamentally incapable of desiring what they already fully possess. If she knows that every time she goes quiet, you will reliably panic, dance like a monkey, and beg for her engagement, she no longer needs to spend a single ounce of mental energy thinking about you. You have made yourself entirely predictable. And predictability is the absolute graveyard of sexual and romantic tension. Let me show you how deep this rabbit hole actually goes. Think about a man who is actively building an empire, a man obsessed with his purpose, his physical training, his absolute mastery of a craft. If a woman takes 3 days to reply to him, his brain literally does not have the RAM to process her absence. His life is an overwhelming avalanche of momentum. When you lack this momentum, her silence becomes deafening. You start hallucinating meanings behind her lack of response. You convince yourself that if you do not intervene right this second, she will vanish forever. And this is where most men utterly fail. They try to logic her into feeling attraction again. They think if they just explain how much they care, she will magically realize their worth. Attraction does not negotiate. It is a raw, subconscious reflex triggered by perceived strength and unshakable grounding. The second you try to bargain for her time, you are stripping yourself of your masculine frame. But the pivot point of your entire reality changes the moment you initiate stoic deflection. You must become an emotional black hole. When she pulls away, you do not lean in. You do not match her silence with passive-aggressive anger or petty games. You match her silence with absolute terrifying indifference. You must understand that true stoicism is not the suppression of emotion. It is the mastery of your focus. When you redirect that agonizing, anxious energy into your own biological and financial upgrades, you alter the very fabric of your reality. But here is the turning point that changes the game completely. You must understand the concept of the emotional vacuum. Nature abhors a vacuum. When she steps back, expecting you to rush forward, and you instead stay completely rooted to your own path, you create an anomaly in her reality. She expects the chase. Her ego demands the chase. When you deny her that predictable ego feed, cognitive dissonance begins to rot her assumptions. She starts wondering if she miscalculated your value. She asks herself if you have better options. Suddenly, the silence that she manufactured to test you becomes a psychological prison of her own making. And this leads to a dangerous psychological paradox. The harder you ignore her attempt to destabilize you, the more obsessive her curiosity becomes. This is not about punishing her, it is about aggressively protecting your own emotional real estate. A high level man views his attention as elite access. If someone does not respect the access, the gates close. No announcements, no dramatic goodbyes, the gates simply shut. This requires a terrifying level of self control, especially when your brain is screaming at you to check her social media. And this is another fatal error you must eradicate immediately. If you are watching her stories, liking her posts, or lingering in her digital atmosphere, you are not silent. You are just a ghost haunting the house you were kicked out of. True absence is a total energetic blackout. She must feel the absolute zero of your attention. She has to experience the visceral reality of a timeline where you simply do not exist. But the real transformation happens when you start building the unrecognizable man. You cannot just sit on your couch, staring at the wall, pretending not to care. That is just poorly disguised agony. You must weaponize the rejection. Every time you feel the urge to check your phone, you do 50 push-ups. Every time you wonder who she is with, you read 10 pages of philosophy. You funnel the disrespect into fuel. Fast forward 3 months, and you do not have to tell her you changed. The new density of your muscle, the sharpness of your jawline, the cold, unflinching gaze in your eyes when she finally runs into you, these things will scream your value so loudly she will feel physically sick for ever doubting you. But the deeper psychological architecture of this process is what truly matters. The reason you hurt so much when she ignores you is because you have outsourced your locus of control. You have handed a completely uninvested person the remote control to your nervous system. By reclaiming your silence, you are ripping that remote control out of her hands. You are declaring that your internal weather system is generated by your own actions, not by a notification on a glass screen. Let me break down the psychology of her regret because it follows a mathematically precise timeline. Day 1 to 3, she feels relief. She thinks she holds all the cards. She assumes you are simply trying to play it cool, but are secretly dying inside. Day 4 to 7, the curiosity protocol initiates. The dopamine hit she usually gets from your validation is missing. Her brain begins to itch. Day 8 to 14, the ego collapse happens. She realizes you are not playing a game, you are genuinely moving on, and this is exactly where the magic happens. She will look at the other men in her phone, the orbiters, the pleasers, the guys who reply in 3 seconds, and she will feel absolute disgust for their weakness. She will compare their availability to your impenetrable fortress of self-respect. You instantly become the one who got away, solely because you had the spine to endure the silence without breaking. But I warned you at the beginning about a specific mechanism, the ultimate trump card in human psychology. This brings us to the Echo Protocol. Here is the secret that changes everything. The Echo Protocol dictates that you never react to the first attempt she makes to re-enter your life. When she finally cracks and sends that trivial hey or a random meme weeks later, she is tossing a pebble into the water to see if you ripple. If you reply immediately, you prove you were waiting. You prove the silence was just a waiting room for her return. The Echo Protocol requires you to let her attempt bounce off the walls of your life with zero acknowledgement. You let the echo fade. You force her to try a second, much more significant time with actual effort and actual words of substance. By forcing her to invest double the energy just to get a basic acknowledgement, you permanently flip the power dynamic. She will never, ever test your boundaries with silence again because she knows your silence is louder, deeper, and infinitely more dangerous than hers. Let us plunge even deeper into the mechanics of this phenomenon. Most men operate entirely from a paradigm of scarcity. They view a high-value woman as a rare lottery ticket, an anomaly in a desolate wasteland of mediocrity. This scarcity mindset is a pheromone that women can smell from a mile away. When you act out of scarcity, your micro-expressions, your text timing, and your energetic signature all scream that you do not believe you deserve her. When she ignores you, your scarcity brain goes into hyperdrive. It tells you that if you lose her, you will die alone in the cold. But here is the brutal truth that shatters this illusion. There are millions of women, but there is only one of your life's purpose. When you elevate your mission above your desire for validation, you completely rewire your aura. The Stoic masculine ideal is not about hating women. It is about loving your own destiny so fiercely that no external rejection can ever derail your train. And this is where most guys stumble into the abyss. They try to fake the stoicism. They try to act like the alpha male while their hands are literally shaking. Women are biologically engineered over millions of years of evolution to detect incongruence. If you are pretending to be unbothered, she will intuitively sense the cracks in your armor. The only way to win the game is to stop playing the game. You must actually, genuinely detach. Detachment is the holy grail of masculine power. It is the realization that her presence in your life is a preference, not a prerequisite for your happiness. Think about the psychological concept of loss aversion. Humans feel the pain of losing something twice as powerfully as the pleasure of gaining it. By ignoring you, she is gambling. She is risking the connection to test its strength. When you remove yourself entirely, you force her to experience the raw, unmitigated reality of that loss. You do not cushion the blow for her. You let her free fall into the void of your absence. Let us analyze a specific case study. Imagine a guy named Julian. Julian was terrified of losing a woman who slowly started taking hours, then days to text back. Julian thought the solution was to be more perfect. He bought gifts. He always agreed with her. He became her emotional tampon. The result? She viewed him as completely asexual, a comfortable pillow to rest her ego on while she chased men who actually challenged her. Julian was fundamentally nice, but niceness without a backbone is just manipulation. You are being nice because you want a specific outcome. True Stoic masculinity operates on radical authenticity. If someone disrespects your time, the authentic response is to withdraw your time. It is a simple mathematical equation of self-worth. Yet so many men are terrified of this equation. They fear that if they step away, she will just forget about them and move on to someone else. And this is the exact fear you must confront and destroy. If she moves on to someone else simply because you refuse to be treated like a secondary option, then she was never yours to begin with. You cannot lose something you never truly had. You were merely renting space in her ego, paying the rent with your dignity. When you stop paying that rent, you get evicted, but you get your soul back. Let us explore the shadow side of your own ego. The reason you want her back so badly when she ignores you is rarely about who she actually is. It is about your injured pride. It is your ego screaming that it wants to win the game. You have to separate your genuine desire for connection from your toxic need to conquer. A stoic man kills his ego daily. He does not need a specific woman to validate his existence, because his existence is validated by the heavy weights he lifts, the difficult skills he masters, and the silent promises he keeps to himself. This creates an impenetrable fortress of confidence. When you carry yourself with this internalized validation, you become an absolute anomaly in the dating market. Women are used to men who crumble under the slightest pressure. They are used to men who orbit them digitally, liking every photo, sliding into every DM, offering their energy for free. When you cut the cord, you starve her of that free energy. You force her into a state of psychological withdrawal. She has grown addicted to the microdoses of dopamine your attention provides. When the supply gets cut off suddenly and unapologetically, her brain goes into a panic state. She will start checking your pages. She will look for signs that you are suffering. If she sees you posting sad quotes, she gets her validation. If she sees you completely silent, focused, and escalating in your own life, she experiences a devastating blow to her perceived power. This is the ultimate reclamation of status. Status is not just about the car you drive or the clothes you wear. It is about who holds the frame in the interaction. When you chase, she holds the frame. When you walk away and never look back, you completely shatter the frame. And this leads us to the concept of the point of no return. There comes a specific moment in this journey of silence where you wake up one morning and the heavy weight in your chest is just gone. You realize that you actually do not care if she ever messages you again. This is the tipping point of true masculine freedom. Ironically, it is almost always exactly at this moment that she decides to reach out. The universe has a strange way of rewarding absolute detachment. But by the time she does reach out, the unrecognizable man has already been born. The version of you that would have desperately jumped at her message no longer exists. You look at her text, you feel absolutely nothing, and you go back to building your empire. That is the true victory. It is not about getting her back, it is about getting yourself back. It is about forging a spirit so dense and heavy with purpose that no fleeting silence from any human being can ever move you off your center. You have mastered the alchemy of pain, turning the lead of rejection into the gold of absolute self-mastery. The Echo Protocol was just the beginning. The real protocol is the lifelong dedication to your own excellence, making you a mountain that no storm can ever wash away.